The air was thick with the acrid scent of burning metal and scorched earth. The battlefield stretched endlessly, a chaotic tapestry of smoke, fire, and shattered dreams. In the distance, towering alien structures loomed like ancient monoliths, their surfaces shimmering faintly under the dim light of an alien sun. It was here, amidst the chaos, that Eric Vallon found himself, a human soldier far from home, fighting for reasons he no longer fully understood. Eric had joined the coalition forces 5 years ago, lured by promises of glory and purpose. Back then, he'd been young and eager, full of ideals about defending humanity against unknown threats. But war had a way of stripping away illusions faster than anything else. Now, at 28, his face bore lines etched by exhaustion, his once bright eyes dulled by the weight of countless battles. Yet despite everything, there was something inside him that refused to give up, a stubborn spark of hope buried deep within. The skirmish on this alien world had started hours, or maybe days, ago, time blurred in combat. His squad had been tasked with holding a critical ridge overlooking one of the planet's largest energy hubs. If they failed, the enemy would gain access to resources capable of turning the tide of the intergalactic conflict. So far, they'd held their ground, but casualties were mounting, supplies dwindling, and reinforcements nowhere in sight. As Eric ducked behind a crumbling barricade, reloading his plasma rifle with trembling hands, he caught sight of her for the first time. She stood atop a jagged outcrop, silhouetted against the fiery backdrop of destruction. Her presence was otherworldly, her figure tall and regal, clad in armor that seemed forged from liquid silver. Her skin glowed softly, as if infused with starlight, and her hair flowed around her like a living aurora. Most striking of all were her eyes, violet orbs that pierced through the haze of battle, locking onto his own with an intensity that made his breath hitch. For a moment, time froze. Despite the cacophony surrounding them, the deafening roar of artillery, the screams of wounded comrades, there was only silence between them. Then she descended gracefully, moving with an elegance that defied gravity itself. Soldiers on both sides paused mid-fight, captivated by her approach. When she reached Eric, she knelt beside him, her expression unreadable yet undeniably sorrowful. "Please don't die," she whispered, her voice melodic yet tinged with desperation. Her words hit him like a physical force, jolting him back to reality. Who are you?" he stammered, unsure whether to trust what he was seeing or dismiss it as some hallucination brought on by fatigue and adrenaline. "I am Lyria," she replied simply, placing a delicate hand over his armored chest. Her touch sent a strange warmth coursing through him, calming the storm raging inside. "Queen of the Vellani." Before Eric could process her introduction, the battle resumed with renewed ferocity. A nearby explosion sent debris flying, forcing Lyria to pull him into cover. Together, they huddled behind the remains of a fallen mech, their proximity making every heartbeat feel louder than the thunderous clashes outside. "What do you want from me?" Eric asked, gripping his weapon tightly. He wasn't sure whether she was friend or foe, savior or saboteur. All he knew was that her presence unsettled him in ways he couldn't explain. Lyria's gaze softened, though her tone remained urgent. "I want nothing more than to end this senseless bloodshed. Your kind has waged war upon my people without understanding why we fight. We did not come here seeking conquest. We came seeking survival." Her explanation sparked a flicker of doubt in Eric's mind. Everything he'd been told painted the Vellani as ruthless invaders bent on domination. Yet looking at Lyria now, hearing her speak with such conviction, he wondered how much of what he believed was truth and how much was propaganda. "You're saying we're the aggressors?" he challenged, his voice rising slightly despite himself. "We're just trying to protect ourselves." "And so are we," Lyria countered, her violet eyes flashing with emotion. "Your leaders have twisted our intentions, turning fear into hatred. They've convinced your soldiers, and mine, that peace is impossible. But I refuse to believe that." Eric opened his mouth to argue, but before he could respond, another wave of enemy forces surged toward their position. Lyria sprang into action, wielding a sleek blade that hummed with energy. With fluid precision, she dispatched several attackers, her movements almost hypnotic. Eric followed suit, firing bursts of plasma while marveling at her skill. For someone who claimed to abhor violence, she certainly knew how to handle herself in a fight. When the immediate threat subsided, Lyria turned to Eric again, her expression resolute. "Come with me," she urged. "There's something you need to see." He hesitated, torn between duty and curiosity. Following her meant abandoning his post, risking court-martial, or worse. Staying meant continuing to fight blindly, perpetuating a cycle of death and despair. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he nodded. "Fine. Lead the way." Together, they slipped away from the main battlefront, weaving through ruined streets and abandoned buildings. Along the way, Lyria explained fragments of her people's history, revealing glimpses of a civilization steeped in art, science, and spirituality. According to her, the Vellani had fled their dying homeworld centuries ago, seeking refuge among the stars. Their arrival in human-occupied space had been accidental, born of desperation rather than malice. Eric listened intently, his skepticism gradually giving way to intrigue. Still, questions lingered. "If you're telling the truth, why haven't you tried reaching out before? Why let things escalate to this point?" Pain flickered across Lyria's features. "Because those who rule us feared betrayal. They saw humanity's expansion as a threat and chose to strike first. I've spent years arguing for diplomacy, but my voice has been drowned out by those who value power over peace." Their journey led them to a hidden chamber beneath the city, accessible only via a series of ancient mechanisms. Inside, holographic projections illuminated the walls, depicting scenes of harmony and devastation alike. One image showed two figures shaking hands, one human, one Vellani, while another depicted ships clashing in orbit. It was a visual chronicle of missed opportunities and broken promises. "This is our shared history," Lyria said quietly. "Proof that coexistence was possible, until fear poisoned everything." Eric stared at the images, overwhelmed by their implications. Before he could formulate a response, however, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Reinforcements had discovered their location. "We don't have much time," Lyria warned, grabbing his arm. "If we stay here, we'll be captured, or worse." Reluctantly, Eric allowed himself to be led further into the labyrinthine tunnels, dodging patrols and narrowly avoiding detection. At one point, they encountered a group of rogue Vellani fighters loyal to Lyria. These warriors, clad in mismatched armor and bearing scars of countless battles, greeted their queen with reverence. Among them was Kale, a grizzled veteran with a sharp wit and a penchant for dry humor. "So, this is the human you've been risking your neck for?" Kale quipped, eyeing Eric skeptically. "Looks kinda scrawny to me." "Watch it, Kale," Lyria shot back, though a hint of amusement played at the corners of her lips. "He may not look like much, but he's got potential." Kale chuckled, extending a hand to Eric. "Guess I'll take your word for it. Name's Kale. Nice to meet ya, kid." Despite the dire circumstances, moments like these provided fleeting relief, reminding Eric that even in the darkest times, camaraderie could shine through. As they continued onward, navigating treacherous terrain and evading pursuit, bonds began forming between the unlikely allies. Conversations grew less guarded, laughter occasionally breaking the tension. Eventually, they reached a massive underground hangar housing a sleek spacecraft unlike anything Eric had ever seen. Its design was elegant yet functional, exuding an aura of advanced technology. Lyria explained that it belonged to her personal fleet, designed specifically for covert operations. "This ship will get us to the capital," she announced. "From there, we can expose the truth and broker a ceasefire. But we'll need your help convincing your leaders to listen." Eric swallowed hard, realizing the enormity of what she was asking. Betraying his own side, even for noble reasons, wasn't something he took lightly. Yet deep down, he knew staying silent would mean perpetuating the lies that had cost so many lives already. "All right," he agreed finally. "I'm in." With that decision made, they boarded the vessel, leaving behind the ruins of war-torn landscapes. As the engines roared to life and the ship ascended into the sky, Eric gazed out the viewport, watching as the planet shrank below them. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope, not just for himself, but for everyone caught in the crossfire. The journey to the capital proved anything but smooth sailing. Barely an hour into their flight, warning klaxons blared throughout the ship, signaling an incoming attack. Lyria sprinted to the cockpit, her movements fluid and precise, while Eric stumbled after her, still getting used to the low-gravity environment aboard the alien craft. Outside the reinforced glass canopy, 3 Coalition fighter drones closed in rapidly, their sleek forms bristling with weaponry. "Hold on!" Lyria shouted, gripping the controls as the ship banked sharply to avoid a barrage of plasma bolts. The sudden maneuver threw Eric off balance, sending him crashing into a nearby console. Pain flared along his ribs, but there was no time to dwell on it. Another volley rocked the ship, sparks flying from damaged panels. "Can't you outrun them?" Eric yelled over the din, clutching the edge of his seat as Lyria executed another dizzying twist. "They're faster," she admitted grimly, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "But they lack finesse." With that, she activated a cloaking device, enveloping the ship in a shimmering distortion field. For a tense moment, the pursuing drones paused, scanning the area fruitlessly. Then, seizing the opportunity, Lyra engaged the hyperdrive, propelling them into the void of space. Breathing heavily, Eric slumped back in his chair, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "That was insane." Lyria flashed him a wry smile. "Welcome to my world." As they settled into hyperspace, the immediate danger passed, allowing them to focus on navigation and strategy. The capital lay several parsecs away, nestled within a heavily fortified system controlled by the Coalition's most elite forces. Getting past their defenses would require cunning, timing, and perhaps a bit of luck. "This isn't going to be easy," Eric muttered, studying the star charts displayed on a nearby monitor. "Security around the capital is tighter than ever." "We won't go in guns blazing," Lyria assured him, her tone calm but determined. "Stealth and subterfuge are our best options. Fortunately, I know someone who might help." She tapped a sequence into the comm system, initiating contact with a shadowy figure known only as Cypher. A distorted voice crackled through the speakers moments later. "Queen Lyria. To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Cypher, I need your expertise," Lyria began, explaining their situation succinctly. "Can you disable the orbital defense grid long enough for us to slip through?" There was a pause, followed by a chuckle. "Ambitious plan. But ambitious plans are my specialty. Consider it done, for a price." Eric raised an eyebrow. "You work with mercenaries now?" "When necessary," Lyria replied evenly. "Cypher's skills are unmatched when it comes to hacking Coalition systems. Trust me, we'll need them." While Cypher worked his magic remotely, the crew busied themselves preparing for the inevitable confrontation ahead. Supplies were inventoried, weapons checked, and contingency plans reviewed multiple times. Kale kept spirits high with his irreverent jokes, though even he couldn't mask the underlying tension gripping everyone aboard. At one point, during a rare lull in activity, Eric found himself alone with Lyria in the observation deck. Stars streaked past the transparent walls, creating an ethereal ambience. They sat in companionable silence for a while, each lost in thought. "Why are you doing this?" Eric asked suddenly, breaking the quiet. "Risking everything, for humans, no less." Lyria turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. "Because I believe change is possible. Because I've seen too much suffering on both sides to stand idly by any longer. And because—" She hesitated, then added softly, "Because meeting you gave me hope." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Eric felt a lump rise in his throat, unsure how to respond. Instead, he looked away, focusing on the endless expanse of space stretching before them. Somewhere out there lay answers, challenges, and perhaps redemption. Hours later, Cypher reported success. The orbital defense grid flickered offline momentarily, providing a narrow window for infiltration. Lyria wasted no time, guiding the ship through the breach with practiced ease. As they approached the capital, its sprawling metropolis glittering like a jewel against the darkness, Eric felt a mixture of awe and trepidation. They landed discreetly in an abandoned docking bay, blending seamlessly with the urban sprawl thanks to the ship's adaptive camouflage. Disguised in civilian attire, the team ventured into the heart of the city, navigating crowded streets teeming with life. Towering skyscrapers loomed overhead, their facades alive with holographic advertisements and neon lights. The contrast between beauty and decay was stark, a testament to the fractured society thriving within. Their destination was the Grand Assembly Hall, where coalition leaders convened to discuss matters of state, including ongoing military campaigns. Gaining entry required bypassing layers of security, which Kale handled with characteristic flair. Using a combination of charm, bribery, and sheer audacity, he secured them access badges disguised as maintenance personnel. Inside, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Opulent corridors lined with priceless artifacts led to chambers buzzing with political discourse. Delegates from various planets argued passionately, their voices echoing off marble floors and gilded ceilings. Amidst the chaos, Eric spotted General Torin, the architect behind the current offensive against the Velani. Clad in ceremonial robes, the man radiated authority and menace. "That's our target," Eric murmured to Lyria, nodding discreetly toward the general. "If anyone can call off the attack, it's him." Lyria nodded, her jaw tightening. "Let's move carefully. We can't afford mistakes here." They split up, weaving through the crowd to flank Torin from different angles. Just as they prepared to intercept him, however, disaster struck. An alarm blared throughout the hall, red lights flashing ominously. Someone had discovered their presence. "Move!" Lyria barked, drawing her blade as guards converged on their position. Chaos erupted instantly, delegates scattering in panic as gunfire filled the air. Eric dove behind a pillar, returning fire with his plasma rifle. Beside him, Kale unleashed a torrent of insults along with bullets, keeping enemies at bay with equal parts skill and sarcasm. Through the melee, Lyria fought her way to Torin, cornering him near a grand staircase. "Call off the assault," she demanded, leveling her weapon at him. "Or face the consequences." Torin sneered, unfazed by her threat. "You think threatening me will stop the inevitable? Humanity will prevail, alien filth. Mark my words." His arrogance ignited a fire within Lyria. "You underestimate us," she growled, stepping closer. "And you underestimate the power of truth. Today, the lies end." As she spoke, hidden projectors embedded in the ceiling activated, casting damning evidence across every available surface. Footage of secret meetings, manipulated intelligence reports, and orders authorizing preemptive strikes flooded the room, exposing the coalition's deception for all to see. Gasps rippled through the assembly, followed by outraged cries. Seizing the moment, Eric joined Lyria, addressing the stunned audience. "People of the coalition, wake up. This war has been built on falsehoods, fueled by fear and greed. It's time to choose a different path, together." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, slowly, applause broke out, growing louder until it echoed like thunder. Delegates rallied around Lyria and Eric, pledging support for peace negotiations. Even Torin, cornered and discredited, could do little more than glare impotently. Victory tasted sweet, yet fragile. As celebrations unfolded, whispers of dissent lingered, reminders that old wounds wouldn't heal overnight. Nevertheless, hope burned brighter than ever, illuminating a future worth striving for. The tide of public opinion shifted dramatically in the wake of the Grand Assembly Hall's revelations, but not everyone was ready to embrace peace. While many delegates and citizens rallied behind Lyria and Eric, pockets of resistance remained entrenched within the coalition's ranks. Among them were shadowy figures who had profited from the war, arms dealers, corrupt officials, and military hardliners unwilling to relinquish their power. As news of the exposé spread across the galaxy, protests erupted on multiple planets. Some demanded an immediate ceasefire, while others called for retribution against those responsible for perpetuating the conflict. The coalition fractured under the weight of internal dissent, its once unified leadership splintering into factions. General Torin, though disgraced, disappeared shortly after the assembly, fueling rumors that he was regrouping with loyalists to mount a counteroffensive. Meanwhile, aboard Lyria's ship, the Etheris, the team worked tirelessly to consolidate their fragile victory. Cypher continued to monitor communications, intercepting encrypted messages hinting at covert operations aimed at destabilizing the fledgling peace talks. One such message caught his attention: a plan to sabotage key Velani installations using stolen coalition technology. "We've got trouble," Cypher announced during a tense strategy meeting in the ship's command center. "Someone's planning to frame your people for attacks on human colonies. If they succeed, it'll reignite the war before negotiations even begin." Lyria clenched her fists, her violet eyes flashing with anger. "This is exactly what we feared. They won't stop until every bridge between our species is burned." Eric leaned forward, studying the intercepted data displayed on the holographic table. "Then we need to get ahead of this. Find out where these attacks are supposed to happen and stop them before they start." Kale smirked, twirling a dagger idly. "Sounds like another suicide mission. Lucky us." Despite the grim outlook, the group devised a plan. Using Cypher's intel, they identified 3 potential targets: a research facility on the planet Arinder, a trade hub orbiting the gas giant Zephyros, and a refugee camp housing displaced civilians from both sides of the conflict. Dividing their forces, they decided to split up and neutralize each threat simultaneously. Eric volunteered to lead the mission to the refugee camp, accompanied by 2 trusted members of Lyria's crew, Mira, a sharpshooter with nerves of steel, and Rin, a tech specialist whose quick thinking often turned the tide in dire situations. As their shuttle descended toward the camp, Eric couldn't help but feel uneasy. The refugees here were innocent victims caught in the crossfire, and if the saboteurs succeeded, countless lives would be lost. "Stay alert," Eric instructed as they disembarked, scanning the perimeter for signs of trouble. The camp sprawled across a barren landscape, rows of makeshift tents providing shelter for thousands. Children played amidst the dust, oblivious to the danger lurking nearby. Rin activated a handheld scanner, its screen flickering with readings. "There's something deep underground, a power core rigged to overload. Looks like whoever set this up wanted maximum casualties." Mira adjusted her rifle, her gaze narrowing. "Let's find the bastards responsible and make sure they don't walk away." They moved cautiously through the camp, blending in with the crowd as much as possible. Eventually, they spotted a group of suspicious individuals huddled near one of the larger tents. Dressed in nondescript clothing, they appeared to be conducting maintenance work, but their nervous glances gave them away. "That's them," Eric whispered, signaling for Mira and Rin to flank the suspects. With practiced precision, they closed in, weapons drawn. "Hands where I can see them," Eric barked, startling the group. One of the men lunged for a concealed weapon, but Mira was faster, disarming him with a well-placed shot. Within moments, the saboteurs were subdued. Back at the power core, Rin worked feverishly to disarm the explosive device. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he traced wires and entered override codes. "This thing's booby-trapped," he muttered. "One wrong move, and we're all toast." "You've got this," Eric encouraged, keeping watch while Mira secured the area. After several agonizing minutes, Rin let out a triumphant laugh. "Got it. Crisis averted, for now." Meanwhile, Lyria and Kale raced to the trade hub orbiting Zephyros. The bustling station served as a vital link between human and Velani supply chains, making it a prime target for sabotage. Upon arrival, they discovered that the saboteurs had already infiltrated the station's engineering bay, planting explosives designed to rupture the hull and send the entire structure crashing into the planet below. "Time's running out," Lyria said urgently, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. Explosions rocked the station, sending debris spiraling into space. Civilians scrambled for escape pods, their cries echoing through the corridors. Kale grinned, unsheathing his blade. "Guess it's time to earn our paychecks." Together, they fought their way through waves of mercenaries guarding the saboteurs' positions. Lyria's combat prowess shone brightly as she dispatched enemies with swift, elegant strikes, her glowing blade cutting through armor like paper. Kale, ever the showman, taunted his foes with biting remarks even as he delivered lethal blows. When they finally reached the engineering bay, they found the leader of the operation, a cold-eyed woman named Sarah, who sneered at their arrival. "You're too late," she spat. "The charges are armed. Nothing you do can stop them now." Lyria stepped forward, her expression resolute. "We'll see about that." With seconds to spare, Kale managed to disable the detonator, narrowly averting disaster. As the station stabilized, Sarah attempted to flee, only to be cornered by Lyria. Why do this? Lyria asked, her tone laced with sorrow. How many more must suffer because of fear and hatred? Sarah hesitated, then lowered her weapon. I was just following orders, she murmured, defeated. Back on the Aetheris, the team reunited, battered but victorious. Each mission had been a close call, underscoring the fragility of their efforts. Yet amid the exhaustion, there was a sense of accomplishment, a belief that they were truly making a difference. But their triumph was short-lived. A transmission crackled to life on the ship's main screen, revealing none other than General Torin. His face was gaunt, his eyes burning with malice. You think exposing a few truths will end this war, he snarled. You're fools. Humanity will never bow to alien scum. Before anyone could respond, the transmission cut off, replaced by coordinates leading to a classified military base. It didn't take long to deduce Torin's next move. He intended to unleash a devastating superweapon capable of annihilating entire planets. Lyria met Eric's gaze, determination etched onto her luminous features. We have to stop him. Eric nodded, gripping his rifle tightly. Then let's finish this. As the Aetheris charted a course for the final confrontation, the stakes higher than ever, hope mingled with dread. The road ahead promised bloodshed and sacrifice, but also the possibility of lasting peace. Whatever lay beyond the horizon, one thing was certain. The choices they made next would shape the destiny of two species forever intertwined. The Aetheris hurtled through the void, its sleek form cutting through the darkness as it approached the classified military base. The coordinates led them to a desolate moon orbiting a dying star, its surface scarred by craters and shrouded in perpetual twilight. Hidden beneath layers of reinforced shielding lay Torin's stronghold, a fortress bristling with defenses and armed to the teeth. As they entered orbit, Lyria stood at the helm, her violet eyes fixed on the ominous structure below. This is it, she said softly, her voice carrying both resolve and trepidation. If we fail here, everything we've fought for will be lost. Eric stepped beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We won't fail. Not this time. With that, the team prepared for what would likely be their most perilous mission yet. Cypher remotely hacked into the base's systems, disabling external defenses just long enough for the Aetheris to breach the atmosphere. The ship touched down in a remote landing bay, cloaked and undetected, for now. Splitting into two groups, they devised a plan. Lyria and Eric would infiltrate the command center to confront Torin directly, while Kale, Mira, and Rin secured the superweapon itself. Time was critical. If the weapon activated, there would be no stopping it. Lyria and Eric moved swiftly through the labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps muffled by the hum of machinery. Security patrols roamed the halls, but Lyria's knowledge of coalition tactics and Eric's combat training allowed them to evade detection. As they neared the command center, tension mounted. Every step felt heavier, every shadow more menacing. Finally, they reached the massive double doors leading to Torin's chamber. With a nod, Lyria triggered the mechanism, and the doors slid open with a hiss. Inside, General Torin stood before a sprawling control panel, his hands hovering over a glowing activation console. Behind him loomed the superweapon, a colossal device pulsating with ominous energy. You're too late, Torin bellowed, his voice echoing through the cavernous room. Once this fires, your precious alliance will crumble, and humanity will rise above all else. Lyria stepped forward, her presence commanding despite the danger. You're wrong, Torin. Humanity isn't defined by hatred or fear, it's defined by resilience, compassion, and the ability to change. You don't speak for us. Torin sneered, pressing a button that sealed the doors behind them. Words won't save you now. Before he could complete the activation sequence, Eric lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The two men grappled fiercely, trading blows as alarms blared throughout the chamber. Lyria rushed to the control panel, frantically working to override the system. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces, sweat beading on her brow as she deciphered complex codes. Hurry! Eric shouted, narrowly dodging a strike from Torin. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead, but he refused to yield. I'm almost there, Lyria replied, her voice strained but unwavering. Just as Torin managed to throw Eric off and stagger toward the final activation switch, Lyria slammed her palm onto a red emergency shutdown button. The superweapon sputtered, its glow dimming as the process halted. "No!" Torin screamed, lunging at Lyria in a blind rage. But before he could reach her, Eric tackled him again, pinning him to the ground. This time, he didn't get up. Breathing heavily, Eric looked to Lyria, who nodded in relief. The threat had been neutralized, but only just. Meanwhile, Kale, Mira, and Rin faced their own challenges securing the superweapon. They encountered waves of elite soldiers guarding the facility, forcing them to rely on stealth, cunning, and sheer force. Kale's sharp wit kept morale high even in the heat of battle, while Mira's precision shots picked off enemies from afar. Rin worked miracles with tech, disabling traps and rerouting power grids to give them an edge. When they finally reached the heart of the weapon, they found additional fail-safes designed to self-destruct if tampered with. Working together, they disarmed the mechanisms piece by piece, their teamwork seamless after months of fighting side by side. By the time Lyria and Eric joined them via comms, the weapon was fully disabled. "Well, that was fun," Kale quipped, wiping soot from his cheek. "Anyone up for dinner?" With the immediate threat neutralized, the team regrouped aboard the Aetheris. Exhausted but triumphant, they watched as reinforcements from both human and Velani fleets arrived to secure the base. News of Torin's defeat spread quickly, further solidifying support for peace negotiations. Back on the capital world, leaders from both sides convened once more, not in anger or distrust, but with a shared vision for the future. Lyria addressed the assembly, her words resonating deeply. "Today marks not just an end to war, but a beginning, a chance to build something greater than any of us could achieve alone. Let us honor those who have fallen by ensuring their sacrifices were not in vain." Applause erupted, louder and more heartfelt than ever before. Eric stood beside Lyria, pride swelling in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt truly hopeful about the future. In the weeks that followed, efforts to rebuild and heal gained momentum. Refugees returned to their homes, trade routes reopened, and joint research initiatives flourished. Humans and Velani began to see each other not as enemies, but as partners in a shared journey through the stars. For Lyria and Eric, their bond deepened beyond measure. Though their paths had been forged in the crucible of war, they chose to walk forward together into a new era. As they stood side by side on the observation deck of the Aetheris, watching twin suns rise over a peaceful planet, Lyria turned to him with a soft smile. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me and in us." Eric smiled back, taking her hand in his. "Always." And so, under the light of distant stars, two worlds became one, united by courage, love, and the unyielding hope for a brighter tomorrow.